So I'm going to call to order the Board of Directors meeting for the July 21st for the Whatcom Transportation Authority. Can we please have a roll call?
Yes. Fleetwood.
Here.
Thank you. Hawkinson.
Here.
Cortez.
Here.
Do we have Jennifer Lautenbach? Not yet. Lilyquist.
Here.
Sidhu. Looks like we do have Executive Sidhu.
Oh, I didn't hear that. Sorry, I'm here.
That's okay. And Williams.
Here.
And we have Eric Davidson absent, as well as Todd Donovan and Holly Huffman on an excused extended leave. And Jen Lautenbach is absent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Hopefully Jen may show up soon. We have a full agenda. First is a pair of items, a public hearing on the Transportation Development Plan, and then consideration of a possible approval of the Transportation Development Plan. Mr. Wilder, are there any opening comments before we start the public hearing?
Yeah, just briefly for the record, did want to mention that Executive Committee recommended approval of the TDP. We sent out links as requested to sample documents to the board, so hopefully you had a chance to at least receive those. Just going to mention that this is a standard report that we do every year, required by state statute. It's due to the state by September 1st, and it's used to inform the state legislature of comings and goings of the transit agencies around the state. I would want to mention just, I know there's some discussion about this last week, but it is a planning level document, meaning that we use it just conceptually to identify the future potential service changes, financial aspects and budget, as well as the capital. It's not used for decision making. We have other tools that we use for that, for example, the CIP, the budget, and so forth. So just want to make sure that you're aware that it's just a planning level document. Baseline year here is 2021. It covers future years, 2022 through 2027. So obviously we're within 2022 already. And then we do coordinate this and send it out to our local partners so they know what we're working on in the next several years. And then I did want to also mention that there was some, we did go back and edit some of the pages, particularly figure 17 on page 20. I have this in front of me here. Page 32. And I'm going to have Shonda talk about that a little bit before we conclude the presentation. But I did want to highlight that was the most significant change to the document. And then finally, I did want to mention that we received 4 public comments. We received one that I think you received yesterday, and then I've got 3 more that I saw that came in this morning. All have to do with public transit service to Sandy Point. There's a request to have a bus route that serves that area. So we can talk about that more if there are questions about that request. And then finally, just want to mention that just to highlight the key pages are the capital improvements on pages 28 and 29, operating changes that are identified on page 30. And we would, with any operating changes, we would still go through our normal biennial service change process. So that's just a kind of a placeholder identification of possible changes we might make over the next 6 years. But we would go through public engagement process, board approval, through additional analysis to determine the specific changes that we would propose in any biennial cycle. And then finally, I'm going to turn it over to Shonda to describe the operating changes or operating plan changes on figure 14.
Okay, great. Thanks, Tim. Yes, as Tim indicated, after the last meeting, there was quite a bit of discussion on the cash balances and the figure on page 32. So we went back and looked at it. And I need to bring your attention to the fact that in the 2022 column, the American Rescue Plan funds that we're receiving this year were inadvertently omitted. That was a line item that I did not add for the $21.2 million. It is included now, and as that ripples through, it takes the ending cash balance at the end of 27 from about $25 million negative to $4 million negative. So a significant impact. It still requires our attention to kind of look as we plan forward with our expenditures and our revenue plans, and possibly changing some of the focus of WTA, that we need to keep that in mind. A couple other things I wanted to highlight is the 2022 column is the approved budget that you approved last year. And the 5 columns after that are forecasts that were prepared during the fall of 21 with the 2022 budget. So this is not a budgeting document. It's simply, as Tim stated, a planning document. And what is not included in these out years are those, those capital projects in the one table in the report, and also the service changes. So those are ideas we want to do, things that we're looking at, but they've not been costed out and incorporated into this chart.
You also talk about reserves.
Sure.
Yeah, they're not.
The reserves on the bottom line?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the bottom line, the total ending balance, this is our cash and all of our reserves. So you're seeing that it's declining year after year, ending us in 27 at that negative $4 million. We do have some covenants that we need to follow, our own operating reserve and other reserve guidelines from the board. And we currently have the line of credit that we're using for fleet replacement that has a $10 million cash minimum that WTA needs to hold. So again, taking those things to account, we'll be looking really strategically at how we spend and plan in the out years to be able to meet those requirements and also achieve the needs of the agency.
So can you cover, is that 4 million without any reserves?
This is without any reserves.
So that's spending all reserves, even the operating reserves. Just want to make sure.
Thank you.
And our operating reserve requirement would be 10, 12 million? What is there?
It's usually about between 11 and 12 million, about 25%.
25%.
Operating expenditures.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Are there any further questions before open public hearing?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead, Paul.
Good morning, everybody. Shonda, this looks much better.
Thank you, I agree.
It's already good. One quick question was American Rescue Plan. You did put in 2022, but it is a time-bound money which has to be allocated before 24, before end of 24, and must be spent by 26. So you may be working on it. We don't need to see that, but I just wanted for everybody's benefit that this is money has a time on it, and when it can be allocated and when it can be spent and where it can be spent, so that we should be all aware of that. Yes, other than that, it's fine. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
The one thing I would say on that is that for transit agencies, that's going towards salaries. So it is technically spent. It moved around. Oh, there you are. The squares moved. So it's for transit, we have to spend it on salaries. So it's spent and then reimbursed. So that's why it's a 0 in the out years.
You guys are so lucky. We can do that.
We should do all those dollars this year, Sat Paul, as reimbursements.
So again, this is not the actual budget, but of course these numbers should line up with the budget. Is there any further clarification or information on the TDP before open public hearing? Hearing none, I'm going to open public hearing. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak to the board on the issue of the Transportation Development Plan? If so, just unmute if you're here. Do we see any members of the public who are trying to unmute?
I actually think that we need to have bus route on Lake Terrell and Slater. Would
this
be
Sherry?
helpful for everyone.
Hi, is this Sherry?
It is.
Okay, do you mind giving your last name? It's just an option for the public record.
Wilson.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I kind of interrupted you. You're interested in service where?
On Lake Terrell and Slater. So that it would be accessible to us out here in Sandy Point.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wilder, did you take a note of that?
Yes, I have. Thank you.
So if there's no further public comment, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing, bring it back to the board, but I want to begin right where we left off. You said there were 4 comments that had to do with, I think you said it was Point Roberts, and then the recent comment we just had from Sherry. You'll include those in your record with regard to any service changes in the next year or two whenever we take that up?
Yeah, Chair Lilica, sorry if I might have misspoke, but it was Sandy Point.
Oh, sorry.
Sandy Point and Lake Terrell Road and Slater. So it was similar to the comment we received at the public hearing. So four written email comments came in.
Okay, the public hearing is closed. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next agenda item, which is consideration of approval of the Transportation Development Plan, which was what we just had the hearing on.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion before us to approve the Transportation Development Plan. Again, as indicated, this is a planning document shared with state officials. It should align with our budget and all of our other internal documents, but it's not actually the controlling document itself. If there's no, I'm sorry.
This is, yeah, you can't see my hand here. I got a couple questions. One is, yeah, it is kind of a roadmap, but spending 50 million more than we're taking in the next 6 years is probably not a good plan, but we will of course adjust along the way, I'm sure. And then the other question I had is, Move Ahead Washington has lots of money for transit items, and I see we're spending a lot of money on vehicles, so I assume electric is in the mix there. And I guess I'm going to assume that there's going to be other grants and other monies available, both from the federal and state governments that we don't know about yet. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, it's a fair statement, yeah. And that's what's the hard part about this, is that the CIP rolls into this, but they're not funded, and we don't predictably know what those grants will be. And so it gets confusing on that aspect of it as we're trying to plan.
Great, thank you.
Any further discussion? And again, these issues will come back up in the next few months when we have the budget presentation in, last that was September or October?
Forecast in September, and then first budget read in October, and then November for approval in December.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, Sat Paul has his hand up. I don't know if you
sorry.
can see it in the Hollywood Squares.
Go ahead, Seth Paul.
Well, since that Point Roberts came up, so that kind of triggered something in my head. I think that's something for everybody's benefit. I want to share with you. I had some discussions with Les and with that community. It's been going on actually during the COVID time. If you remember, we even went ahead and put a ferry twice a week to Point Roberts. I think Port of Bellingham was, they did that with our help. It is a subject which does come up, and I have been in touch with them. I'm actually planning to go there again early next month on a few other topics, but this has been a hot topic. We actually proposed that maybe we should give them one of the van pool. Just give it to them. They, okay, that this is from us, and you guys organize the driver and running of it, and county would even subsidize the fuel cost, because we have tried many different ways to service them. It does not help. There are very few people there, and their schedules and their needs are very different. And of course, crossing two borders and then bringing to plane, and then they get stuck. Now they have to do 2 or 3 chores in Bellingham, and they are unable to do that. And we offered the van because we said, okay, if you do twice a week trip and get people, and you can have them do their chores all through the city, and everybody, whatever 5-7 people are in there, and then take them back in the evening. They have tried, and they couldn't reach consensus how to do that. Then they asked for one of these vans given to them, and they can run it locally as a local service, like what we do it here, that they can do that. And I propose the same thing, that it won't be doing through WTA because of all other issues involved of persons staying and all this. And we said, okay, we can do that. And then you run it, and we will subsidize the fuel as county. And that has not materialized. I just wanted everybody to know that there have been a lot of talk. We're not ignoring them. It's a very unique part of our county and population, and they pay taxes like everybody else. And we've been sensitive to their needs, but we have not been able to come up with any solution. Thank you very much. I just wanted everybody to know.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute. Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion on approval of the transportation development plan? Hearing none, I'm going to go ahead and call the question. Since we're online, the procedure I'm using is if there are no objections, I'll consider all votes to be in favor of the motion. Are there any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. The TDP is approved. Thank you very much. Looking at the agenda, are there any citizen communications to convey other than the ones we already talked about?
Vicki, we haven't gotten any general comments, correct?
No,
Or
we
did
haven't.
anything come in?
Okay,
Thank
thank you. So the next action is a closed session, and it's slated for about 20 minutes. And then when we're out of that, I want to make sure that we have full board presence for the first action item, discussion of a bylaws change. And hopefully no one will have to leave before that. So the collective bargaining update, we're going into a closed session with authorized under state law RCW 42.30.140 section 4B for specific purposes. We'll go into closed session with no members of the public attending, and then we'll return to this same Zoom session when the closed session is over. Okay, would someone please open the closed session and transfer board members?
Absolutely. There you go. So we'll keep this window open for the next 20 minutes. If there's going to be any delays, I'll come back and update you, but we'll plan to be back about 8:42. Thank you.
If committee be 7 of the 9 people, and then a week later, 9 of the 9 people vote on it. But this makes a lot of sense to just have 2 meetings. Unless there's a where the executive board is reduced, but as far as I can tell, we only have 1 officer, which is the chair. So it makes a lot of sense to not duplicate the items. We just plow our way through them. So I would be in favor of doing so.
To be clear, we actually have two officers, a chairperson and a vice chair, but of course we don't both serve the same role at the same time. We're looking for a motion on this. Does the board feel comfortable? Does someone feel comfortable making a motion?
So moved.
Don't move.
Okay, we have a motion before us and a second. This item, sorry, I'm trying to look. The resolution is a separate item, isn't it? For the,
Yeah, so on the agenda cover sheet, Mr. Chair, there's a draft motion that the Board of Directors approve Resolution 336 TAC 22 to amend the WTA bylaws to remove the executive committee structure and hold 2 board meetings per month instead.
and that resolution also simultaneously adopts the new meeting schedule for notification.
We would offer a second motion that would adopt the schedule.
Okay, so
We did
do I
it
understand,
separately. Wanted to make sure that it was a vote to approve before we amended the other one.
just to make clear, I think Jen, you made the motion and you were actually moving to change the bylaws. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, is there any further discussion on the issue of changing the bylaws to dissolve the executive committee? I'm going to go ahead and do a roll call vote on this. It just seems like a bylaws change is significant. Roll call, please.
Okay, Fleetwood,
Aye.
Hawkinson,
Aye.
Cortice,
Yes.
Lautenbach,
Aye.
Lilyquist,
Aye.
Sadhu,
Yes.
Williams,
Aye.
and did I miss anybody?
Okay, by my record, the motion passed unanimously. We now need to entertain a second motion, which is to adopt the new meeting schedule.
I'll move we adopt the new meeting schedule.
Second.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So this is to adopt the new meeting schedule, which is on the exact same days as before, but now both those meetings are full board meetings. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, I have a point that we should set ourselves that by January, we should be able to adjust that and put it 2 weeks in between. Otherwise, 2 meetings are so close to each other. I think that should give us enough time, 4 or 5 months from now, January or before, that we should be more evenly distributed, and no meeting in summer. I think what we do is I think it's August or part of August, part of September. We skipped 4 weeks. So and this is just a suggestion for people.
It's not a bad suggestion. I think we adopt next year's meeting calendar probably in December.
Okay.
In December, yes, sir.
And I think your intention and Satpal's suggestion is that we separate the 2 meetings by a week.
Yes, sir. That would be staff's recommendation.
Okay, any further discussion on the readoption of the meeting schedule? If there are no objections, I'll consider the new meeting schedule adopted unanimously. Are there any objections? Hearing none, the new meeting schedule is adopted unanimously. Thank you very much for doing all of that.
Thank
Moving
you.
things along, we have 3 more action items and then the consent agenda, as well as reports to the board. Next action item is consideration of approval of an interlocal agreement for the student bus pass program with Whatcom Community College. Ms. Coleman.
Hi, good morning. The staff would like to recommend that the Board of Directors approve a 1-year interlocal agreement with Whatcom Community College for the student bus pass program. Whatcom has typically, or up to this point, Whatcom has had a contract based on FTE, and when we started doing Youth Ride Free, we had them exclude the Running Start students. And now that we have Youth Ride Free, that's going to exclude a few more students. We want to restructure their contract so that it's set up on the same basis as we have Western's contract. We believe that that's more equitable. It does save Whatcom a bit of money, but also it feels like the right thing to do to have both contracts set up the same way. They manage better and it feels more fair. The outcome of that is probably, or the fiscal impact will probably We're estimating it to be about $100,000. It's likely to be less than that. And that impact is due to it's less expensive for Whatcom when we calculate it per tap. Also, ridership has been pretty depressed, and we are changing this so that it's based on ridership. And we've noticed at Whatcom that a lot of students have found other means of transportation during the time that we had COVID restrictions. And then also we'll be taking out, still taking out the Rolling Start students, but also youth 18 and under. So that's going to make a bit of an impact as well.
So Tammy, this will be based on actual usage, kind of retroactively adjusted.
Yes. Yeah, we are able to tell pretty accurately how many students tap their cards when they get on the bus. And so we'll just bill them at 50 cents per tap. We have the technology to separate out all of the students who are what we call eligible and then the ineligible, because Whatcom will just send us 2 lists, and we can still track ridership for both groups, but we'll only bill Whatcom for the eligible group.
Thank you, board members.
I'll move approval.
Yeah. Okay, I second that.
Okay, we have a motion. Thank you, Ali and Sat Paul. Any further discussion?
Yes, Tammy, when we say $100,000 loss, what is the total revenue we are losing 100,000 from?
That would be the revenue that we get from Whatcom, and in the past it was about 167,000, 170,000 in the past. And when we originally calculated, we offered them this option back when we offered it to Western, and they didn't want to do it then. And we made a comparison, and it looked like it would save them about $5,000 to $7,000 per quarter at that time, and that was back in 2019. And then as we've moved along, ridership's gone down. We're adding in a lot more students who are free. So this may be a slight overestimate, but ridership has been pretty depressed for those students. It's pretty low right now.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Motion before us today is to approve an interlocal agreement with Whatcom Community College for bus passes. If there's no further discussion, I'm going to call the question. If there are no objections, I'll consider the motion passed unanimously. Are there any objections to approving the interlocal? Hearing none, that motion is passed unanimously. Thank you very much. Next action item is consideration of approval to enter into an agreement with Burton Construction of Renton, Washington for job order contracting. And then I think the next item actually refers to a first work item under that new job order contracting, if I understood correctly.
Yes, that's correct, Michael. So staff is recommending the board of directors approve a contract with Burton Construction for up to $500,000. That would expire in mid-April of 2024. Back in September, we brought forth a motion. We brought forth an item for the board to approve an interlocal with Port of Everett, allowing us to use their contract with Burton for job order contracting. JOC is a unit priced public works type contract. It saves staff significant time and effort, allowing us to be a little bit more efficient. Unfortunately, I forgot to bring forth this agenda item back in September when we originally approved the interlocal agreement. So this is just kind of going through and doing a little bit of cleanup of my files. Does anybody have any questions for me? Is that Paul?
I have a question. Have you looked at if there was a local contractor who wanting to do the same contract at the same price? I know this is Everett has it and we can piggyback on them and it's vetted everything. I totally understand, but I'm just looking at, is there a possibility that or have you explored, or we should explore in future, that a local company wants to do the same work at the same rates, because these people are coming from out of town and doing the work and their cost must be higher. A local person should be able to do that. I don't know somebody is willing to do that or not, but just a thought.
And that's a great thought. With Jock, the solicitation's already done, and that's kind of where we're at. We would end up having to bid this out, which we can do that. The challenge though is, again, it kind of adds a little bit of additional time onto each project. The solicitation piece has already been done for us, and the unit prices have already been agreed on.
No, I meant is not that every small job have to be, RFP or anything. That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting with the same rates and same thing is somebody who can qualify. So, okay, we will take that contract and we'll do it at the same rates.
I understand now.
That's what I meant. Yeah.
We could set up a similar program for WTA. That would involve a request for a proposal to set up a Jock, our own Jock contract. I know City of Bellingham has a Jock. They have their own JOC program. Unfortunately, there was no interlocal language, and I believe I can never pronounce it correctly. Curcio, Mike, help me out.
You're right. You got it. Very good.
Megan,
we as a county have one too, more than one actually. That's why this came to my mind that if we can make the interlocal wording change if that's what is the hindrance. I just explore it. I'm not voting no or anything or delaying this thing, but maybe by the time it ends, we should try to prefer if we can find local people to do it.
Yes, I will make a note, Satpal, and later on this afternoon, I'll start exploring other options.
One thing is, as we had talked about this, is that it's still a pilot program to figure out how often would we use this. And so we didn't want to go out and do our own. And so until we figured out whether we could use it. So Megan kindly went out, looked at, where can we piggyback? The Port of Everett had one. It was easy to hop on and had the interlocal language. So it was easy to hop on, and then we were going to pilot it, see how often we used it, and whether it was worth doing. And then I guess we can, as Megan kindly said, we'll check back and see if the city or county could modify to allow us to piggyback there.
Another feature with the JOC program is, even though we have this contract with Burton as the prime, 70% of their work is done by subcontractors, and WTA can request, I want to use the word request, WTA can request what subcontractors to use, and 9 times out of 10, it's all local. The work is all staying local with local subcontractors. Is there any other questions?
Good discussion. Yeah, is there any further discussion on going ahead with this interlocal agreement at this time? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to call the question. If there are no objections, we'll consider approval of the agreement with Burton Construction for job order contracting, piggybacking on Everett's JOC. If there are no objections, it'll pass unanimously. Hearing no, are there any objections? I'm losing track of where I am in the meeting. If there are no objections, the motion passes unanimously. So we have now approved the agreement to work with Burton Construction. The next item is consideration of an actual work contract for installation of electric bus chargers at the Midway lot with Burton Construction. Mr. Bozzo?
Yes, good morning. Staff would request the Board of Directors approve or authorize the General Manager to approve a contract with Burton Construction for the installation of the 4 electric chargers in Midway for $157,726 and change, and authorize the General Manager to execute any potential change orders without the need for further board approval, provided the change orders do not exceed the General Manager's approval authority of $150,000 and are within the budget. So these chargers, 2 of them were purchased in February of 2019 with the 2 electric buses. We were awarded through the low-no contract with the FTA, and 2 were purchased with the additional 2 electric buses in 2021 with our state green grant. Burton will install the chargers at our Midway lot using the existing power service utilities and improvements that were installed in 2018. These costs will equally be divided between the 2 grants. The FTA NOLO will pay 85% of their half, and the green grant will pay 80% of their half, for a total of $130,124.54, leaving $27,602 in local funding. Any questions?
I'll move approval.
Second.
We have a motion before us with a second to approve the construction contract for installing 4 chargers. My question is, are these 4 chargers that each charge 1 bus apiece, or are these like the dual chargers? A charger that actually charges 2 buses at the same time? Just physically, how are they?
What we're buying right now is there's 2 components. One is the inverter, and then the dispenser at the buses. We originally bought 1 inverter and 1 dispenser per bus. In the future, we can add a dispenser so we can split the amperage between 2 chargers and charge 2 buses at a time. So in the future, if we use local funding, the chargers will be much reduced cost. We only have to buy the dispenser.
Nice. I assume that means we have to physically locate enough space so the buses can both access.
That was all in the original design. So
Nice.
We anticipated this.
Okay, any further discussion? If there's none, I'll call the question and again ask for any objections. If there are no objections, I'll consider the motion passed unanimously. Hearing none, the motion is passed unanimously to award the contract to Burton Construction for 4 new electric bus chargers paid for primarily out of 2 recent grants. I believe the next action item is consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, if there's no items to pull from the consent agenda, I'll call the question. If there are any objections, hearing no objections, consent agenda is approved. Thank you very much. We now go on to reports of the board. Les.
Mr. Chair, I got to get off the meeting, go to somewhere else. Thank you very much.
I understand, Paul. Seth, you're waving your hand too.
I was just waving bye-bye.
Okay. Well, bye-bye. Okay, come on, folks, hang with me. We're trying to fix this. Mr.
We'll keep this quick. I think to save time, I'll take H1 and H3 together, and then we can wrap up with Josh on the county ride system. General manager's reports. We, as you'll notice, have noticed in the adoption of the resolution for meetings, there's only 1 meeting in August on the 18th. We would respectfully request to stick around for a half hour longer, as we'd like to discuss fair policy. And the board had asked us to bring that back. We could use some direction on that. So we will like to go down 1 meeting and do that on the 18th of August. Administratively, we had I authorized an emergency repair to the overhead door on the west end of our chassis wash bay that had come off its track. Looked like the cable was broken, essentially. That has been fixed, declared an emergency, finding that there was a real and immediate threat to our property if that thing crashed or stayed open from security and so forth. Total cost was under $500 for that emergency repair, but wanted to let you know I had done that under the RCW. A couple other things. The Northwest Fair's coming up August 11th through the 20th, and so we will have our fare free, our fare FAIR free for the FARE. So that's exciting. That's coming up August 11th through the 20th. On another piece of good news, received another $50,000 on our zero emission transition fleets plan from the state for WashDOT. They had more money and we applied for that, which will allow us to expand the scope and develop some additional deliverables on that to be able to tell the story and communicate more on the transition plan that we come up with. On a more serious note, security remains a concern. There was damage at the Fred Meyer stop on Lakeway to our stop. We've had our CTS Expediter booth was vandalized yesterday. The restrooms at BTS remain closed. As an aside, WTA, the contractor in Whatcom Community Health, met this week to go over the remediation plan, so that continues to move forward. But we are looking at ways to try to address a societal issue and what WTA can do on that. So there's more to follow. We're in the midst of talking to staff to try to come up with ideas and things that we can do to respond to that and make sure staff knows that we do recognize this is a huge issue and trying to work on that. So the bottom line on that is you may see some requests in the FY23 budget on resourcing some of the ideas that we come up with, but wanted to highlight that. And then the last thing, which is back to good news, is we had a class of 9 new transit operators start on Monday. Great group. Was able to spend a few minutes with them on Monday. Very engaged, super excited about being part of a transit agency, and really had some interest in where transit's headed over the time. So we welcome them and look forward to having them as part of the team. So I'll pause there if there are any questions on any of those items.
Do we have any part-time transit operators?
We do, yes.
And what's the maximum age you can be to become a transit operator? Is there
we
a
talk afterwards about an application? Vanessa can.
I'm just thinking what I could do in retirement. Part-time transit operator.
I'll be there for a second. I lost the mayor there for a second.
That's okay. I just wanted to regarding the meeting on August 18th. I'm going to be at the Mayor's Institute on City Design Conference. I will be completely out of commission. I just want to give you a heads up in case you're having any quorum issues on August 18th.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And your staff has been good enough to let us know on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Then see any other questions? Jump into H3, just to keep it part of that, was we had, as staff, had done monthly updates on our mission statement. As you know, our mission is to enhance the community by safe, friendly, efficient, reliable service, innovation, partnerships, and environment. And so each month we were taking one of those bullets to let you know what efforts we had underway to meet that line of effort. Wanted to loop back with the board to see if that was helpful to understand what was going on under each of those mission lines of effort. If so, we'll continue to do it, but didn't want to waste your time at a board meeting if it wasn't helpful.
I think my feedback is that I thought they were positive, but they seem to always be rushed. So it's not to blame the agenda item, right? It was more our meeting schedule didn't allow time for that, non-action item kind of briefing.
Right. Okay. So so the idea is good. It's building the appropriate time to have a discussion on it as opposed to rushing. Okay. Anybody else have a no that is a waste of time that we shouldn't try to figure out a way to do it? Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate the feedback, Mr. Chair. Over to Josh on an update on the countywide radio system.
Well, good morning. So over a year ago, this board joined Whatcom County Council and the City of Bellingham Council in a joint resolution directing the creation of the regional radio system. This effort was undertaken due to existing conditions, including the lack of existing integrated public agency radio system, the poor state of some of the existing systems, and the lack of coverage throughout the community. It also came about because of the bold but necessary move by this board to purchase the radio system that WTA had been leasing for over 5 years. That $3.3+ million purchase was needed to provide WTA with reliable second responder grade voice radio system. However, I think you guys recognize that the purchase impact could be far greater when combined with the efforts that the city and county were also undertaking. As you might remember, that resolution directed staff at all 3 agencies to develop a proposed plan to partner, cooperate, and share staff resources, physical assets, and commit financial resources for the creation of a countywide digital public radio system for use by other agencies. The resolution directed staff to negotiate a proposed interlocal agreement for your consideration. So I wanted to give you a quick update on the progress that we've made over the last year and talk about what's coming next. So both technical and senior staff at all 3 agencies have been meeting regularly to develop a concept of how such a system could be created, funded, and operated. While there are examples of other regional radio systems throughout the state that we looked at, none have identified a joint operation model quite like ours. And frankly, none of them had a local transit agency as a key participant in the systems. Over the last year, after many revisions and reviews, we're nearing a final draft of the proposed interlocal agreement. It would establish a governance model for a jointly owned and operated system, overseen by a small committee of senior leaders from the agencies, supported by a technical committee of key technical staff from the 3 agencies, and input from a broader subscriber committee. It would establish some high-level mechanics for how subscribers fund the system and how our 3 owner-operator agencies are reimbursed via these funds. And of course, it devotes whole sections of stuff to things our lawyers said we had to put in there. With that draft framework taking shape, it was decided that our next steps were to develop the financial and budgetary plans necessary to implement this. These plans will flesh out anticipated subscriber revenues and the necessary expenses to both operate and expand the system. Each of the 3 agencies will use these plans in preparing their 2023 annual budgets. Significant investments have been made already at all 3 agencies. Besides the over $3.3 million recent investment with WTA, Whatcom County spent over $1.2 million recently, with more on the way to build out a reliable public safety grade microwave backbone for the system. The city of Bellingham has also spent millions over the last decade building out a parallel system to ours that provides coverage and capacity both within the city and in parts outside. Even with these significant investments, we've identified additional investments that will need to be made to provide the coverage and capacity that the region needs. This investment in our community will be presented to each agency for consideration while you're working on your 2023 budgets, and will be incorporated into WTA's 2023 budget. Our goal is to share additional information over the next 6 months, especially on the financials, start introducing additional elements of the interlocal agreement, and start discussions with subscribers and just share with you the subscriber agreements. Our goal will be to complete the financial stuff as part of the 2023 budgeting processes, which will plan to be adopted by each of the agencies in December and November, and then support the whole thing and bring it all together with an interlocal agreement signed by all 3, the board and the 2 councils in January of 2023. So that's our timeline at this point, and the progress that we've made and what we expect to do in the coming months.
Josh, briefly, what's the proposed governance?
It's basically has us jointly owning and operating. So each agency is contributing financial and staff to the process. And there's a committee made up of senior leaders, a senior leader from each agency, typically a director from each of the agencies, that then would meet, as well as with input from a representative from a subscriber committee, as well as a representative from the technical committee. And that group, see, 2 from the subscriber committee, sorry. It's 2. I think some of those numbers we're still working on, but and so that governance group would oversee the operation of the system. Sure, that answers the question.
Related to that, Josh, is that governance like which one? Whatcom? Is a group of electeds, or is this a group of?
Sorry, it would be a group of staff.
Staff.
So at this point, anticipating, for example, this isn't set in stone yet, but the anticipated staff might be, for example, the City of Bellingham Public Works Director, perhaps myself as the IT director here at WTA, and then I think the sheriff's office, as the county has designated the sheriff's office lead for all countywide radio systems, a staff member from the sheriff's office, most likely either the deputy director of emergency management or the undersheriff as the staff. Trying to, I will be frank that there were a lot of opportunities to apply lessons learned from other jointly operated interlocals within the community and to try to apply those to this interlocal.
Josh, I don't know how you measure usage, like, you know, minutes of talk time or amount of data, you know, if there's, you know, 100% usage, what percentage do we expect WTA or the county sheriff's office or Bellingham Public Works will be using the system? Will we be even able to know the kind of fair proportion of use?
We will, and it'll be important to track that, because as our subscriber base grows and our usage grows, we'll need to expand capacity over time to incorporate that additional usage. Currently, my back of the napkin math shows WTA is probably the largest user initially over the first couple of years, and frankly, probably long term. We talk a lot on our radios. But the funding model that we're looking at currently, and this could change over the next 6 months, but the initial idea is a per subscriber model, so that we can have consistency from each of the agencies who are paying for these, kind of like their phone bill right now, right? They can pay for a cell phone, they pay for a radio, and they buy one for each staff member or each vehicle, something like that. So we're looking at a subscriber fee that's similar or less than what somebody might pay for a cell phone today.
Has it been considered that some users may be more expensive to serve? I'm thinking that, for example, the Whatcom County Sheriff's Office may require kind of a higher level of equipment than, say, WTA does, that we would need to buy premium equipment because it serves law enforcement. Is that true? Is there some chance that some users will drive system expenses differently than others?
I think overall, what we have today is a system that I would call a second responder system. So transit agencies and public works, it's reliable to that level. What we've identified is that we need to make some additional investments in reliability and coverage and capacity to bring it to what we would call a first responder capable system. And this would be one that would be fully supportive of bringing over fire, EMS, and law enforcement at the first responder level. We believe those investments are within reach in the next couple of years, and that once we're at that point, those investments assist everybody, and they create a more reliable radio system for second responders like ourselves, or like a public works or parks department, while at the same time supporting that of the agency. That is system-wide, and the funding model at this point is focused on the system-wide aspects as well as the operation of it. The actual equipment that's in, like, the vehicles or on the staff's hips are going to be consistent across the whole system. So we don't see like a more expensive model or something like that here versus there. It's mainly just improving things like the communication reliability from site to site. So having maybe redundant paths, making sure we have backup power. A lot of it has to do with kind of redundancy type things and reliability efforts, as well as coverage. So we'll be looking at improving coverage in East County. We have some coverage we need to do up Highway 20 to support both the sheriff's office as well as some other potential partners down in Skagit County. One thing WTA is looking at is potentially bringing on Skagit Transit as a partner in this, as a subscriber, because there's a lot of cooperation that we'd like to do or are doing on the radios that are being improved by this. And like I said, East County as well as coverage. Well, we're already making investments in North County. I'll say too, in addition to the financing side, staff are already working on the technical side as well to get this thing ready, and we want to hit the ground running. The sheriff's office is leading efforts in upgrading the microwave backbone So we're creating reliable microwave links off of each of the tower sites, upgrading all of that equipment. That's already in progress and will continue at a time, as well as expanding equipment in other places.
If I could, one of the things that has, the frame of reference, if you will, that I've looked at this through is thinking back to the pipeline explosion back in 1999 and the all hands on deck response that we needed. And one of the real problems with that was communication. And it wasn't just first responder communication. It was how did the city get a hold of WTA for buses if needed evacuation, or the school district, or those things. And it was an issue. And so that's kind of the lens that this would set up for us going forward. And so that's the system, at least that's the lens I have trying to drive towards.
Okay, thank you. I've asked a number of questions. Does anybody else have questions, or are we done with this briefing for now? Josh, thank you for the update. Look forward to more particulars as they develop. I don't think there's any more business before the WTA board.
No, sir.
Okay, thank you everyone for staying so long. Again, our goal is to try to keep it to an hour. Maybe we can do that in 2023. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.